I forced my husband to live as a woman. I used to believe marriages only broke because of loud things. Arguments. Betrayal. Words sharp enough to leave scars in the air long after they were spoken. But the truth is, some marriages begin to crack in silence. Ours did. From the outside, our life looked calm, almost perfect in the quiet, ordinary way people secretly hope for. A small, sunlit apartment on the third floor. 2 coffee mugs always left in the sink because mornings were too rushed for washing dishes. Evenings filled with soft television noise and the comfort of knowing someone else was breathing beside you. My husband, Arav, was the kind of man people trusted instantly. Gentle voice. Careful smile. The type who apologized even when he wasn't wrong. He worked as an accountant, steady job, steady routine, steady life. Nothing dramatic. Nothing unpredictable. And maybe that was the first sign something was missing. Because steadiness can slowly turn into distance, and distance can become a question you're too afraid to ask. I started noticing it in small moments. The way he hesitated before changing clothes, always turning his back slightly toward me. How he stayed awake long after I pretended to fall asleep. How certain drawers in the wardrobe were always perfectly arranged. Too perfect. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. Marriage does that to you sometimes. You begin searching for problems simply because everything feels too quiet. But silence has a sound if you listen long enough. And one night, I heard it. It was past midnight when I woke up, not because of a noise, but because of the absence of one. The bed beside me was empty. Still warm, but empty. A thin line of light glowed beneath the living room door. I remember telling myself not to get up, not to look, not to turn curiosity into something irreversible. But curiosity is stronger than fear, and truth is stronger than sleep. So I walked out. Slow steps. Cold floor. Heart beating louder with each second. The living room was quiet. Too quiet. And then I saw him. For a moment, my mind refused to understand what my eyes were seeing. It tried to rearrange the image into something normal, something explainable. But reality stayed exactly where it was. Arv stood near the mirror, wearing my clothes. Not as a joke. Not clumsily. Not like someone pretending. But carefully. Almost peacefully. A soft blue dress rested against his body. His hands trembled near his face, as if he had been about to remove something. Or perhaps put something on. And the expression in the mirror. It wasn't shame. It wasn't excitement. It was something far more dangerous. Relief. I should have said something. His name. A question. Anything. But shock doesn't always create noise. Sometimes it steals it. So I just stood there, watching the man I married look like someone who had finally stopped hiding from himself, if not from me. The floor creaked beneath my foot. He turned. And in that single second, our entire marriage changed. I expected panic, denial, excuses rushing out faster than breath. But none of that happened. Instead, Arav looked at me the way a person looks at a door that has finally opened after years of being locked. Terrified, yet strangely calm. Neither of us spoke. Because some truths don't begin with words. They begin with the moment you realize nothing will ever be simple again. The days that followed felt unreal. We continued our routines, morning tea, polite conversations, shared dinners. But something invisible had entered the space between us. A question neither of us dared to ask out loud. Who was the person I had really married? And an even more frightening one. Who was he trying to become? I watched him carefully after that night. Not with anger. Not even with betrayal. But with a growing, complicated feeling I didn't want to name. Because beneath the confusion, beneath the shock, there was understanding. Tiny, fragile, dangerous. I began noticing how tense he looked in public and how strangely peaceful he seemed when he thought he was alone. 2 different versions of the same person. Both real. Both trapped. And somewhere in the middle of that realization, a thought formed in my mind, quiet, slow, impossible to ignore. What if this wasn't a secret to destroy? What if it was a truth waiting to be faced? The idea should have scared me. Maybe it did. But fear can turn into curiosity, and curiosity can become something much stronger. Control. Because the more I thought about it, the more I understood one simple thing. Arav would never choose this life on his own. He was too afraid, too careful, too used to hiding, which meant, if the truth was ever going to come out, I would have to be the one to force it into the light. I didn't know then how far that decision would go, how deeply it would change both of us, how lines between love, power, and identity would begin to blur until none of them looked the same anymore. All I knew was this. The night I saw my husband in that mirror, something inside our marriage woke up. And once a truth wakes up, it never goes back to sleep. What I'm about to tell you is the story of the moment I stopped pretending nothing was wrong, and the moment I made the most dangerous choice of my life. I forced my husband to live as a woman. And the terrifying part? He didn't stop me. The morning after I saw him in the mirror, we didn't talk about it. Not because it wasn't important, but because it was too important. Some truths feel like glass. Touch them too quickly, and everything shatters. So we behaved like strangers pretending to be married. Breakfast was quiet. His eyes stayed lowered. My voice stayed normal, carefully normal, the way people speak at funerals when they're trying not to cry. But silence has weight, and I could feel it pressing down on both of us. For 3 days, nothing happened, and yet everything changed. I started watching him more closely, the way his shoulders relaxed when he thought I wasn't looking, how his fingers lingered on soft fabrics while folding laundry, how he paused near the cosmetic shelf in the supermarket, not touching, just looking, like someone staring through a window at a life they weren't allowed to enter. It wasn't perversion. It wasn't a joke. It was longing. And once you recognize longing in someone you love, you can't pretend you didn't see it. The idea came to me slowly. Not in a dramatic flash. Not like a villain in a story. Just a quiet thought, growing in the dark. What if hiding is what's hurting him? But another thought followed right behind it. Colder, sharper, more dangerous. What if he'll never stop hiding unless someone makes him? That was the moment love and control first became tangled inside me. And I didn't pull them apart. On the 4th night, I made my move. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, scrolling aimlessly on his phone. Tired. Distant. Careful. I opened the wardrobe, took out the same soft blue dress, and placed it gently beside him. No anger. No accusation. No raised voice. Just one quiet sentence. You don't have to lie anymore. His entire body froze. Slowly, painfully slowly, he looked up at me. I will never forget that expression. Not relief. Not fear. Something deeper. The look of a person standing at the edge of a cliff, unsure if they're about to fall, or finally learn how to fly. I don't know what you mean, he whispered. A weak lie. The kind people tell when they're begging you not to push further. But I had already decided. I stepped closer, picked up the dress, placed it in his trembling hands, and said the words that changed everything. Wear it. Right now. In front of me. His breathing stopped. For a moment I thought he might refuse, might get angry, might walk away. But Arav had never been good at fighting, especially not against someone who could see straight through him. His fingers tightened around the fabric, as if it were both a weapon and a lifeline. Why are you doing this? He asked. The truth? I wasn't completely sure. Maybe I wanted honesty. Maybe I wanted power. Maybe I wanted to understand the stranger I had married. Or maybe, somewhere deep inside, I wanted to see how far he could change if someone finally gave him permission. Because hiding is killing you, I said softly. And I won't watch that happen. Tears filled his eyes instantly. Not loud tears. The silent kind that come from years of holding everything inside. And in that fragile, shaking moment, he nodded. Watching him change clothes in front of me felt unreal. Every movement slow, careful, exposed. Not seductive, not shameful, just vulnerable. Like witnessing someone remove armor they'd worn their entire life. When the dress finally settled against his body, the room went completely still. Even the air felt different. He couldn't look at me. His hands trembled at his sides. His breathing came in shallow, frightened waves. "Say something," he whispered. And I realized my opinion mattered more than his fear. That realization was power. And power is dangerous when mixed with love. "You look," I began. He flinched, peaceful. His knees nearly gave out. Because deep down that was the one word he had always been afraid to hear. That should have been the end of it. One emotional moment. One secret acknowledged. But something inside me had already crossed a line. Seeing his hidden self, understanding it, controlling when it appeared, it awakened a feeling I didn't expect. I didn't want this to be temporary. I wanted to see what would happen if the mask disappeared completely. So, I asked the question that pushed us past the point of return. What if he didn't hide anymore, even outside this room? His head snapped up in pure terror.
No.
No, I can't. People would. I would lose everything. Everything.
Job.
Family. Respect. Identity. The entire life built on pretending. And yet, beneath the fear, there was something else. A tiny, dangerous spark of want. I saw it. And once seen, it couldn't be unseen. That night, neither of us slept. Because we both understood the truth silently forming between us. This wasn't just about clothes anymore. This was about who he was allowed to be and who I was willing to make him become. Over the next week, the changes began, small enough to deny, big enough to matter. Longer time in front of the mirror. Softer voice when we were alone. Fingers learning the shapes of makeup brushes with nervous curiosity. Each step filled him with equal parts terror and relief. And each step pulled me deeper into something I still couldn't name. Love? Control? Obsession? Maybe all three. But transformation never happens quietly. Secrets create tension. Tension attracts discovery. And discovery was closer than either of us realized. One evening, as he stood in the living room, wearing the dress again, makeup slightly uneven, eyes shining with fragile, forbidden hope, the doorbell rang.
Loud. Sudden.
Impossible to ignore. Both of us froze. Because we weren't expecting anyone. And in that single heartbeat of silence, a horrifying thought crashed into my mind. What if this is the moment everything collapses? He looked at me with pure panic. I looked at the door, feeling the future hanging on the other side of it. The bell rang again. Longer this time. More impatient. More real. And I realized, whatever happened next, there would be no going back, that I took a step toward the door. Still not knowing who was outside, or whether opening it would destroy our lives forever. The second ring of the doorbell felt louder than the first. Sharper. Closer. Final. Arv's breathing turned uneven behind me. Small, broken sounds he was trying desperately to hide. I didn't need to look to know what he looked like in that moment. Frozen between two lives, dressed in one truth while terrified of losing the other. And somehow the decision of what happened next had become mine. "Go change," he whispered, voice shaking. "Please just give me 1 minute. 1 minute." That was all it would take to bury this again. To fold the dress away. To pretend none of this had ever crossed the boundary of imagination. 1 minute to return to a safe, silent marriage. My hand rested on the doorknob. And for the first time, I understood something terrifying. If he changed back now, he might never come this far again. Some doors only open once. The bell rang a third time. Long, impatient. Demanding an answer. I turned slowly to face him. Mascara slightly smudged. Lips trembling. Eyes filled with the kind of fear that only exists when someone is about to lose themselves, or finally be seen. And in that fragile second, love and cruelty felt almost identical inside my chest. Because I knew what I was about to do would hurt him. But I also knew hiding had been hurting him for years. "No," I said quietly. Just one word. Soft but irreversible. His face collapsed in disbelief. "Please," he tried again, stepping toward me, heels unsteady on the floor. "I'm not ready. I can't, not like this, not yet."
Not yet.
Those two words echoed in my mind. Not yet had probably been his entire life. Not yet to be honest. Not yet to be free. Not yet to be himself. If I gave him another, not yet, it might turn into never. So instead of opening the door, I did something worse. Something neither of us had imagined when this night began. I stepped closer, gently lifted his chin, and whispered, "Then be ready now." Tears spilled instantly down his cheeks. Not loud sobbing, just silent surrender. The kind that comes when a person realizes the moment they feared most has finally arrived. Behind us, the doorbell stopped. Silence filled the apartment. Heavy, waiting. Whoever was outside was still there. And we both knew it. Seconds stretched painfully. I could feel his heartbeat through the thin fabric of the dress, where my fingers still rested against him.
Fast.
Fragile.
Alive.
"Why are you doing this to me?" he asked, barely audible. The question cut deeper than I expected. Because I didn't have a simple answer. Not revenge. Not punishment. Not even curiosity anymore. The truth was far more complicated and far more dangerous. Because somewhere along the way, I had started believing this version of him was the real one. And I didn't want to lose her. "I'm not doing this to hurt you," I said. My voice shook for the first time that night. "I'm doing this because I think you deserve to exist." His eyes widened, as if no one had ever said something like that to him before. Maybe no one had. A soft knock replaced the bell.
Calmer.
But somehow more terrifying.
A human sound. Close. Certain.
No more time left. Arv's fingers clutched my wrist suddenly.
Cold.
Desperate. "If you open that door, everything changes." I held his gaze. "Yes," I whispered. "It does." For one suspended heartbeat, the entire future balanced between us. Two choices.
Hide.
Or be seen.
Lie.
Or become real. Then slowly, before fear could stop me, I turned the handle. The door opened only a few inches at first. Enough to see a shadow. A familiar silhouette. Someone neither of us was prepared for. And the moment my eyes recognized who was standing there, every drop of confidence drained from my body. Because of all the people in the world, this was the one person who could destroy everything. Behind me, Arv whispered, "Who is it?" My throat went dry. I couldn't answer. Not yet. Because the truth sitting on the other side of that door was worse than being caught. Much worse. The door opened wider. Silence exploded through the room. 3 lives, 1 secret, and a single second that would decide all of our futures. And just before anyone spoke, Arv took one trembling step forward in his heels into the light, where there was no hiding left. What happened next is something I still don't fully understand. Because the reaction on the visitor's face wasn't anger, wasn't shock, wasn't even surprise. It was something far more unsettling. Recognition. And in that moment, I realized a terrifying possibility. What if this secret was never his alone? If you think you know what happens next, whether this night destroys our marriage or transforms it into something neither of us expected, tell me in the comments. Because the next part of the story changes everything. For a few seconds, no one spoke. Not me. Not Arv. Not the person standing at the door. Time didn't feel real anymore. It felt stretched, fragile, like one wrong word could tear the entire moment apart. Arv's heel clicked softly against the floor as he stepped beside me, fully visible now, no shadows left to hide inside. I felt his fear like a pulse in the air. But the expression on the visitor's face still hadn't changed. No outrage. No confusion. Just that same quiet, unsettling recognition. "Arv," the visitor said slowly. Not shocked. Not questioning.
Certain.
Like someone who had already imagined this moment long before it happened. My stomach dropped. Because there is only one thing more terrifying than being exposed. Being expected. Arv's fingers tightened around the edge of his dress. You weren't supposed to." His voice broke before the sentence finished. The visitor stepped inside, without asking.
Calm.
Careful. Almost gentle. And that's when I understood something was deeply wrong. People who discover secrets usually react loudly. But people who already know move quietly. "I wondered how long it would take," the visitor said. Every word landed like glass shattering in slow motion. I turned toward Arav in disbelief. He couldn't even look at me anymore, which meant only one thing. This wasn't new. Not for him. Not for the person standing in our living room. Only for me. The betrayal didn't feel sharp. It felt hollow, like the ground disappearing instead of cracking. How long? I asked, barely recognizing my own voice. No one answered immediately. Silence again, but this time it wasn't fragile. It was guilty. Before we were married, the visitor said quietly. For words. That's all it took to rewrite my entire past. Memories rearranged themselves in my head. Every strange moment, every hesitation, every silence I had ignored. None of it had started after our marriage. I had walked into a story already in progress. My chest tightened, but not with anger. With something far more complicated. Because standing there, seeing Arav shaking, exposed, terrified of losing me, I realized the truth wasn't simple betrayal. It was fear. Years of it. Fear strong enough to hide an entire identity even from the person he loved most. Why didn't you tell me? I whispered. This time, he did look at me. Eyes red. Face defenseless. No lies left anywhere. Because I thought if you knew, his voice trembled. You'd never love me. The sentence hit harder than any confession. Not because it accused me, but because part of me knew he might have been right. The version of me from years ago. The one who believed love had strict rules, clear shapes, safe definitions. Maybe she would have walked away. But the woman standing here tonight, watching her husband break open in front of her, wasn't that same person anymore. And that realization scared me too. Because it meant something inside me had changed right alongside him. The visitor watched us silently. Not interrupting. Not judging. Almost like this moment, this collision of truth and love, was something they believed needed to happen. And maybe it did. Because for the first time since I saw him in the mirror, there was no control left. No forcing. No hiding. Only honesty. Raw and irreversible. I forced you to face this, I said slowly. I thought I was pushing you toward the truth. Arav's breathing steadied just enough to listen. But the truth is, my voice softened, I was also forcing myself to face something. His eyes searched mine, afraid of what would come next. I don't know what our life looks like after tonight, I admitted. I don't know what this means for us, for you, for me. Every word felt like stepping into darkness. But I do know one thing. A long pause. The kind where futures are decided. I'd rather face the truth with you than live comfortably inside a lie. Something inside Arav finally broke free.
Not fear this time. Not shame.
Relief, so deep it looked almost like pain. Tears fell again, but differently now. Lighter. Warmer.
Real.
And in that quiet, fragile living room, with the past exposed and the future completely uncertain, I understood the most terrifying truth of all. Love isn't about controlling who someone becomes. It's about deciding whether you're brave enough to see them fully and stay anyway. But staying was only the beginning, because the world outside this apartment still existed. Family.
Work. Society.
Judgment. Secrets don't disappear when they're revealed. Sometimes that's when the real battle starts. And as I looked at Arav, still trembling in the soft blue dress, standing between the life he lived and the life he feared, one question formed quietly in my mind. Was I strong enough to walk beside him when everyone else might walk away? I didn't know the answer yet. And maybe that uncertainty is where every real story truly begins. Because 3 days after that night, a message arrived that threatened to expose everything far beyond the walls of our home. No warning. No sender name. Just one sentence. Everyone is about to know the truth. And this time, love alone might not be enough to protect us.